not going to be able to. It's not going to be stopped. Robert Saleh has done a fantastic job on the defensive side, but it's going to prove that offense scoring points, they're going to outscore that defense. But I do expect it to be maybe a 35-28 ball game. I think San Francisco can put points on the board. And I think it's going to be the way that either the head coaches are able to make changes along the way. The best way to describe it is that, okay, you take a punch and you see if you can, keep on standing up, and you throw another one and counter punch. That's the kind of game I think we're going to get here.
Candy, what are your observations? What do you have to say toward David?
First of all, hi, Candy. It's nice to talk to you because I'm also always talking to two guys on the radio.
It's nice to talk to you, David. Thank you. I think it's kind of highly ironic that he was just asking us about, or talking about, coaches making changes at halftime, because we had just talked about that, whether we thought that was going to be a big deal or not. I think it could be. I think it depends on who's down. I see Kansas City being able to make changes, especially in offense, quicker and easier than I think San Francisco could, if they would need to. What do you think?
Oh, no doubt about it.
I think one of the unique things about Kansas City is that you've seen the last 2 weeks, they've been able to take their opponent's best shot, adjust in basically mid-stride, and then say, okay, we've given them a chance to, basically wear themselves out. We can calm them down a little bit. Let's go play our football game and let's go win. It reminds me a lot of the 2013 Florida State team. I know this is probably a bad analogy, but Florida State would let, they came out cold and they had trouble always in the first quarter. And opponents, even Miami and Florida and Clemson and whatnot, they would basically wear themselves out. And then things settled down and, the offense got going and they would put up monster points. It's the same principle, college or pro.
Well, it's a good analogy. I have no problem with anything that falls within what we're talking about. It makes sense. Nope, I don't care what example you use. So, I think one of the go ahead, Dave.
Who do you think is going to come out on top of that? I haven't been here for the conversation. So, did you pick a favorite for?
Yeah, I've got San Francisco 21-17. I do. Now, you and I and Candy were all at the opener. Okay, we could all say that. But the Jacksonville Jaguars took on the Kansas City Chiefs. At that time, the Jaguars' defense was considered one of the better ones, and we saw what Mahomes did and where he threw it. So, if anybody can comment on what we've seen firsthand with our own eyes, everybody can, but we saw it firsthand. So, where do you think Mahomes has changed from when we saw him during the regular season opener to where we're at now, unquestionably his last game of the year?
More maturity. He was good that game, and make no mistake, before the game, I think we even discussed it. We didn't expect Jacksonville to win that game. I didn't expect Kansas City to put up 40, but then again, Miles Jack got ejected, and there was infighting during the game, and Nick got hurt, and all those intangibles. But there's a maturity about him. He's young and he's a gunslinger and he's mobile and he's all these things. But you see that he's more calculated in how he moves the football, especially when he runs to his right. When he's on the move out of the pocket, he's going to make a throw across his body. He's not as loose, and what I mean by that is that he's taking better care of the football when he's letting it go. He's also more cerebral. He's looking off his first and second wide receivers before he actually makes a play if he has time in the pocket. Those are the things that you learn as you progress. And give it credit to Eric Bieniemy, and who's his offensive coordinator, and Mike Kafka, who's his quarterback coach, for being able to work with him to work on those mechanics.
Good point. Good point. So, my question to you, as it has been throughout the broadcast, okay, we know that Kansas City has been able to overcome some deficits. They took the pretty decent shot from Tennessee, and more importantly, they came back from 24 against the Texans. Do they overcome a deficit against the 49ers?
I think so, and this is probably the reason why. San Francisco depends more on its defense to control the tide of the game than Kansas City does. Kansas City's got a good defense, but it's not as dominant as the front seven of San Francisco has been this year. So there's more of a, you want to call it balance, but it's like the Jaguars in 17. They needed the defense to come out and set the tone so the offense could get rolling. It's vaguely similar, but it's still the same notion. The defense controls what happens in victories for San Francisco. The games they've lost, their defense has fallen apart for gaps, which have basically been the decisive reason why they've lost. Kansas City is able to play enough to keep them in the game, and then they turn the switch on. It's kind of like fast break Laker basketball of the 80s. That's Kansas City's offense, and it's worked perfectly this year.
Well, I'd say so. So now I'll go back to another thing. Jimmy Garoppolo was a game manager against the Packers. Do you see where him in a situation where he has to throw the football 20 to 25 times?
If they cannot run the football, that means Damian Williams isn't moving the football well enough. And yeah, he's going to have to throw it 25, 30 times. And he's a rhythm passer. He's good. And I'm sure that there are 20 NFL teams that would love to have him on their team because throwing the ball around and with corresponding parts. But he's a rhythm passer. I think that the stage isn't too big for him, but I do think that if he is not consistent with football, because it wasn't was it against Seattle where they won, but the last game of the season he wasn't consistent with it, and he had to rely on the running game and the defense to help them get through. If you pass the ball 30 times, they won't win the game. That's the bottom line. It has to be more balanced.
What does he learn from being Tom Brady's understudy in New England, knowing that he was a backup quarterback for two of those Super Bowl wins? It's not, he can at least say, I've been there and have won a couple of rings, and relay those experiences over to his current teammates.
I have to keep this clean, right? I'm sorry.
As clean as you're possibly capable of doing it.
Okay, there you go. I love that. I think, first of all, watching Tom Brady play football on the sideline is probably one of the greatest things you can do and learn from. And I know that there are situations where backup quarterbacks get, reps and roles and whatnot. But to watch Brady, because he's the consummate game manager of all time, because he can turn it on when he needs to and when he has to, jailbreak and lead the team down the field. That's what he does. But Tom Brady is smart enough to know to pick and choose when to keep the team moving at an even pace and when to open it up. He's the coach on the field, so to speak. Garoppolo, watching that, you can see that he becomes a game manager, and there are times when he opens up the offense when he needs to. And I know that that's a coordinator thing, and that's probably a Kyle Shanahan thing as well from his time in Atlanta. But you can see the similarities in their slight. And I'm not ever going to say that Jimmy Garoppolo is Tom Brady, but you can see the similarities in how he opens up the offense when he has to, and when he has to go to short and intermediate passes like a West Coast offense to move the ball down the field to be able to use time to his advantage.
Well, if you're going to bring that analogy up, I'll take it a step back with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre and had a chance to carry a clipboard and study what Brett was doing. And like anybody that's trying to learn a new business, the more shadowing you do, the better off you are, not only mentally in the head, but your ability to carry out. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely benefited by holding a clipboard. Now he got his own gig, and he's capitalized on it. And credit the 49ers front office headed by John Lynch, surround him with a lot of good supporting pieces to make this team what it's become. So I think your analogies are very, very much appropriate. When you compare the 49ers now, with Jimmy Garoppolo dating, and then, of course, his dating back to what we saw with the Packers. And understudy is the key here. You have Favre and Rodgers, and then you have Garoppolo and Brady. So I think that's very much online. So for the San Francisco 49ers, we've talked about their running game, but George Kittle is a guy that could very well be poised to have a big game. And on the other side, you have a great tight end in Travis Kelce. Let's compare and contrast the two tight ends.
It may be the best matchup of the game. I really do believe that. And they're not playing against each other. I know that the greatest thing we could see is that both pass catchers have, if both tight ends have 10 catches and over 100 yards in pass receiving, which would be unheard of. But Kelsey has been viewed as the best tight end of the business right now, and Kittle is right on his heels, ready to push him out of the way and say, "No, it's me." They are both big parts of the offense, and both teams have speed on each side. Kittle becomes more of a factor because the wide receivers, and even though there's Emmanuel Sanders on one side, I don't know that Goodwin is as competent a pass catcher in rhythm. On the other side, Mahomes has Kelsey, but he's also got Sammy Watkins that he can throw to underneath, and then he's got Tyreek Hill, who is quicker than lightning, who spreads the field, and if he can use his running backs across the middle, it's more of a full complement of receivers, and it's more dimensional. So San Francisco relies more on Kittle than they do Kelsey, although when Kelsey catches the ball, he catches it for greater yards in bigger situations.
Okay. All right, let's go back to the Jaguars-Chiefs game. Tyreek Hill gets hurt. Sammy Watkins becomes a big, big factor in this football game. Kansas City's going to need all the offensive help that they can get. Obviously, injuries can play a factor in this. Let's talk about the potential production of Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. Obviously, I did just a little moments ago. He was huge. They need a big monster game from Watkins. I can tell you that right now.
Yes, they do. Speed, and more speed.
Right.
You kid around. When we were kids and we were playing Madden in our 20s or whatever it was, and every time somebody ran across the field, he scored a touchdown. Madden would yell, "Speed kills." It's a track meet for Kansas City. I mean, they all are super fast. They all split across the middle, or they play outside, or he can throw underneath in the seam. It is it's a catch me if you can mouse race. San Francisco doesn't have that kind of firepower, which means the West Coast offense becomes more important to their success. If he's not able to complete short and intermediate passes, which will hopefully set up a long throw on a third and short or whatever, they don't have a chance.
Candy, what do you want to add to this?
Well, I was going to ask David, out of the different facets of the game, which team's facet is going to win this game? Is going to be the X factor? Is it going to be San Francisco's defense? Is it going to be Kansas City's special teams? Which one is going to come up with the X factor of the game to win it?
I think it's how Kansas City's going to use its second, third, and fourth options in the passing game. We saw the kid Bell from Kansas City, the tight end who was a Jaguar last year, became an effective part of the passing game in the third quarter last week. The fact that he is able to use his second, third, fourth, fifth options effectively, and they all are able to get open, that's going to be the X factor. Is San Francisco going to be able to change its defensive approach where it has enough of their linebackers and their secondary to be able to cover all of their skill positions?
Okay, so one last question. Who becomes the MVP of the Super Bowl?
I don't think it's any doubt that if it's Kansas City, it's Mahomes, and if it's San Francisco, it's Garoppolo. And unfortunately, it's by design. I was going to I was going to write something about that this week that maybe I can touch on real quick.